What's going on, family? Welcome to another episode of AmeriZulu. Okay, maybe still sleeping. It's been a long flight. I don't even want to get it's been a lot. If you ever travel, you know that trying to get yourself together after all of this traveling, yo, it can be a mess. It can be a mess. So we slept a whole day. It's the next day. I ain't gonna lie to y'all. We didn't do no recording. We didn't do no filming. We just been trying to rest up. But let me show you the view from our place. Check this out. Welcome to Nairobi, family. Nairobi is beautiful. You understand? I don't know what people think when they say that Africa isn't beautiful, but it don't matter what part you go to, you can always find something beautiful to see in Africa. Look at this. Our place. I'm excited to be here, y'all. We just making our visa run. We trying to make sure that we keep things copacetic, but look at what we got to see every day. Yo. All right, so let's get into it. What I want to talk about today is my experience through my first 90 days in South Africa. Uh, I've been back and forth, I've been a few times, I've stayed long term, but this is my first time like being here permanent, like really diving into society, really diving into how things work. Um, and it's been an experience. I'm not gonna lie. It hasn't all been great. It hasn't all been peaches and cream. I know a lot of people will get on and tell y'all about all the good things and all the beautiful things, which are absolutely true. Um, don't get me wrong. It is definitely a beautiful place to be. South Africa, I'm talking about. Um, but there could be some hardships. There could be some things that you want to be prepared for. There could be some things that you may not be able to deal with, you know? Uh, so let's dive into those and let's try and talk about Christie's first 90 days in South Africa. Let's go. Okay, so the first thing is don't believe what you may have been told about the visa process, about uh, living in South Africa, about how that thing goes. Do your own research. I know I talked about this in the last video about making sure that you have your visa stuff set up, making sure that you know exactly what type of visa you want to try and get or that you qualify for. Like there's a lot of misinformation that is going out about how to make a global move work, right? You hear people talking about, oh, you just go for 90 days, you cross the border, and you come back and you'll get another 90 days. That's not necessarily true, right? You could cross the border, you could stay your 90 days and then cross the border like I'm here in Nairobi, right? Go back and they may only give you 30 days. They can give you 7 days. Depending on what country you're from, the visa laws have changed. As we know, with even in the US, right? Things are changing as far as the visas go and as far as immigration goes. So you have to know exactly what your status is, what visa you're trying to get, and the process on how to get those things done, right? Now, in the States, we are very used to, and I'm gonna just say it frankly, we are very used to government being very efficient in comparison to what you may experience in South Africa or any foreign country. The way that things go in South Africa compared to the United States are completely different, right? I mean, I have probably been to, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 different immigration, home affairs type offices for the same document, for the same things. Um, Everything isn't always as reliable. Information isn't always as consistent as you may be used to in your home country, right? And if you're listening to people who are telling you, oh, just do this, it's no problem, things like that. For example, I had a friend of mine who um, traveled to South Africa maybe a year or two ago, and the visa process was very different for them than it was for me, right? And so some of the information that I was getting from that person wasn't necessarily accurate today. Okay, um, you can't depend on what someone else may be telling you is the process for getting these things done. So he was under the assumption that as long as you are legally married, as you know, my wife is South African. We're legally married, and so his assumption was, his process was, that's why I say his process was, when he did it, he was able to stay within the country while applying for his visa status, for his spousal status, for his permanent residency. Now in South Africa, you can't get permanent residency right away. Um, and we're just talking about the spousal visa portion. If you're going for a spousal visa, you can't get permanent residency right away. Okay, you get permanent residency after you've been in the country for 5 years. Okay, then you can apply for your permanent residency card, get your ID card, things like that. Right. Before that, right, you're on a spousal visa status, right? You can get work permits, things like that on that, but you have to do the process legitimately. Now, if I had listened to what he had done and what had worked with him, right, I could be in some serious trouble. Because if you overstay that period, if you overstay that 90 days, right, you could technically be banned, yeah, from entering the country at all. You understand? So information that was accurate for him during his time would have definitely landed me in a very bad situation, right? And everybody has their own process, but what I would suggest is working with some type of visa or immigration company. There are plenty of them there that can help you prepare and navigate the process of getting your visa sponsorship or whatever you're trying to do, get that accomplished. Now, if you're going for like a digital nomad visa, critical skills visa, that type of thing, the process could tweak a little bit more, right? You still can't overstay, right? And most times, to apply for these permanent residency visas, what people don't tell you is you have to apply from your domicile country, right? So if you're from the US, you have to go back home, right, to apply for that visa status in your home country. And then once you're approved, you can come back. If you try to apply for that here in South Africa, or there, I'm in Nairobi, but if you try to apply for that in South Africa, you can land yourself in some trouble. So you definitely want to make sure that you understand exactly how this process works, right? Because if your goal is long term, even if you do have to go back for a month or two or whatever that case may be, right? You've already understood that. You've already planned that. You've already getting your documentation together, right? There's certain documentation that you can only get in South Africa, right? There's also certain information, certain documentation that you can only get in the United States or in your home country, in the UK, wherever you're from, right? You need to gather that documentation there, right? So knowing that ahead of time could save you a lot of back and forth trips, right? And I'm gonna just say it. Everybody's not gonna tell you the same thing, right? You're gonna run into situations where one home affairs office is telling you, no, 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 this is fine, no problem. But the next home affairs office is telling you, hey, look, that's not going to work at all. Those aren't the rules, and you got to follow the rules, right? So it can be frustrating. You have to have patience. This is not going to be a situation where you just go in, click, 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 everything's clicking, but expect the unexpected, right? Have a backup plan. Have some finances or something set to the side so that if you do have to leave the country, if you do have to pay an extra fee, if there are things that you need to do, you need to be prepared to be able to handle those when they arise. Okay, so visa processes, immigration can be a very, very frustrating and mind-boggling experience if you are paying, if you are ready for it, right? Honestly, I think because of my situation, because I'm going for a spousal visa and because my wife is here, some processes has been a tad bit easier. But even still, right? Like I say, it's been tough. It's been tough to navigate, and I want to tell the truth about it. You know, I want to make sure that you guys understand that this is not going to be easy. This is not going to be. Nobody's giving you anything because you're an American citizen. Nobody's giving you anything because you're from the UK. Nobody's giving you anything, right? Because of where you're from. Drop your expectations. Drop your entitlement, right? And let's be honest, some of us from other countries, and I'll just talk about the United States, some of us from the US have a very strong sense of entitlement and a very strong sense of we want things to go the way that they're supposed to go, right? And it's understandable. Like, I can understand that we're used to the processes being clearly defined. Here are the steps that I can follow: one, two, three, four, and that's it. That is not going to be the case in a lot of these countries you go to. You gotta be able to maneuver through some things. You've got to be able to make some connections. You've got to be able to contact. You cannot be afraid to speak to people and ask questions. You can't be afraid to ask the same question to different people multiple times until you can figure out what's going to work best for you. You understand? So, as far as visa processes, that's been my experience so far. Um, I'm working with a company who's helping me to, make sure that my documents are in a line and that things are set up properly. But beware. Let me just throw this out here. Beware of these companies. Truly vet these companies. Get as many suggestions and references and referrals as you can for some of these companies, because there are a lot of scams. Let me say it again. There are a lot of scams when it comes to visas and immigration. People saying that they can get you here and do this for you, and I know this person. Forget all of that stuff. Forget all of that stuff. Is without question, it's going to land you in trouble. It's going to land you in a spot where you may not even be able to get a visa at all. So vet the company that you're going to be using. And vet the company that you're going to be using thoroughly, right? And if you choose to do it on your own, which you can, tons of people do it on their own without an issue, without a problem, and they get approved and they get all their documentations done. But those people have thoroughly researched. Those people are spending the long nights in their places, getting their documentation together. Those people are spending the money that it takes to make the copies and the traveling. And these people are really, really putting in work. It's a part-time job ensuring that your visa status is in order, right? So don't just stop listening to these people that tell you to get on a plane, right? Go to a country and you'll figure it out while you're there. That's not reality. That Don't do that. Make sure your plan, your documentation, everything you need to do is fully in line, fully ready to go, and that you've got a clear understanding of what it's going to take to get approved. Okay? So now, let's talk about life in South Africa. In comparison to, I can only speak from the US, and so let's talk about it from the perspective of living in the US. I will say that I feel a lot more free, unrestricted, and able to be myself a lot more here than I was in the US. I feel like everybody has this sense of, you do your thing. I'm not in your business. I'm not worried about what you guys are doing. I'm gonna do my thing, right? I feel like at home, there's a lot more of a culture of keeping up, a lot more of a culture of what are you wearing? What are you driving? Where are you living? What do you do for a living, right? There's not that covert pressure, that underlying pressure to make sure that you represent yourself in a certain way, right? You can just be you, right? You don't know who is a millionaire. You don't know who's rich. You don't know who owns businesses, right? Because you just don't have that type of pressure. I think that anytime you give respect, it's a lot easier to get respect. And what I mean by that is respect the fact that you're in somebody else's country. You know, respect the fact that this is not your home. You can make it home. You can grow here. You can integrate yourself into society and into the culture, right? But understand that it's not your culture, that is not your home, that is not your land, right? The same way that in the States, you know, when foreigners may come in and take over our communities and take over the stores in our communities and run all the businesses in our communities, right? There's a tad bit of disdain for that, right? Because we feel like we should be in those positions. We feel like we should have had the opportunities to own these businesses, to run these stores, to run these organizations, right? We feel like we deserve those things. And we aren't necessarily wrong. So when you're traveling to these countries, you have to understand that that's the same thing, right? Some people see me in South Africa as a threat, right? Um, Not because of me as a person, but because of the privilege that I bring with me when I come, because of the US dollar that I bring with me when I come, right? The same way that we are afraid of and fight against gentrification, right, is the same thing that South Africans are going through. And I've heard this time and time and time and time again from my South African brothers and sisters that gentrification is killing it, right? It pushes up the cost of housing. It pushes up the cost of food, right? If I can come and spend without a problem, it's relatively cheap for me. That doesn't mean that it's relatively cheap for my South African brothers and sisters, right? The pushback that I would give on that is, what if that isn't our goal? You know, what if we're the same people, and I can only speak for Black Americans because that's what I am, right? What if we're the same people who want to invest? What if I'm the same person who wants to buy these communities to make sure that my people have some place to live? What if we're actually the help and not the hurt? You know, what if we're actually the ones who can come together and make this work, right? Not all of us are here to destroy and take and suck resources from the land, right? Um, some of us are looking for our brothers and sisters who will embrace us, who will work with us, who aren't trying to scam us, who don't see us as meal tickets, right? And I'm gonna be frankly honest. A lot of times it's difficult to meet people because you can be looked at as the cash station. You can be looked at as the ATM. And you know, that's very, very discouraging because I think what a lot of my South African brothers and sisters don't realize is that we're going through the same struggle on a different scale as they are, right? It took us a long time to save and to plan and to go through all of the things like I'm talking about at the beginning of this video to be able to actually make it to South Africa, right? So then you get here and you expect to be embraced and loved and we can collaborate and make something work, you know, and it's not that, right? You're just an invader who wants to take from the land. And so it can make you a target, you know, when your heart is big and when you want to help and when you know, there's a level of expectation, let me say, that a lot of people have, that some people have here in South Africa, that you should, because you can. You understand? I mean, we all know about a foreigner tax. It doesn't matter where you are, whether you're in South America, whether you're in Eastern Asian countries or South Asian, wherever you are, right? Sometimes there's an expectation that you should because you can. You should pay more because you can pay more. You should do more because you can do more. You should help because you can. And that's not always true. I wish that my brothers and sisters that are from these places would understand that we are fighting the same fight. I'm trying to make it too. I'm not here because I have. I'm here because I'm trying to get just like you. And I would much rather work together with you than some other people, you know? And that's just the truth of it because I do see your struggle. I do see what it's taking you to get, you know, where you are, you know, and so it can be difficult to navigate friendships and relationships that aren't based off a give and receive uh, mentality. Let's just call it that. And so, um, if it's one message to that, it's just give us grace. You know, understand that it's not what you think. Understand that it's just as much of a struggle for me as it is for you. Um, to make it here in South Africa. So it is a real thing that, a lot of our people, a lot of South African people are afraid of gentrification, are afraid of you coming here and raising the prices for everything. So I guess what I'm saying to us who are traveling here, us who come here, is just to be mindful. Be mindful that some of the things that you consider basic, some of the things that you don't think too much about, right, can come off a certain way, right? And not that you have to be concerned about everything you do because somebody's going to judge you or somebody's going to, be yourself, do your thing. I'm just saying, be aware that your privilege isn't everybody's privilege. Be aware that what you bring, right, is sometimes somebody's dream. And that could also be a reason to be cautious and to protect yourself and to make sure that you're putting yourself in environments and situations, right, that are to your safety, best for your safety, right, and that don't offend those around you, right. Nothing's worse than a show off. Nothing's worse than somebody who looking down on other people. I've been talking to a lot of South Africans, and the notion is a lot of people, a lot of South Africans feel that Black Americans feel like they're better than them, or that we look down on South Africans for some reason. I'm not sure where they really got that notion, that feeling, that truth that they have embraced. Because from my experience, that's not true. From my experience, I haven't heard Black Americans talking down on South Africans or saying, negative things about how they live, or ignorant things I've heard like, oh, they living in huts and running around with giraffes and lions and things like that. Nobody thinks that. We are educated enough to know that that's not real. That of course there are parts of Africa that are still village life, that still have underdeveloped cities and things that are still not taken care of the way we're used to. We are not that ignorant to think that all African people, all South African people, all African people are living in huts and chasing lions and sleeping next to bears. Like, it, there has to be a level of understanding on both sides that we've all been miseducated. We've all been told the same lie. Look around me. Nobody, nobody where I'm from thinks that this is Nairobi, Kenya. Nobody where I, right? But that doesn't mean that we look down, or that we think that you guys live in slums, or because the poverty level is the same in the States. There's things that I see here in Africa on the poverty side of things that look just like home. There are living conditions that our people are going through at home that are the same in South Africa. The government is failing people in America the same way the government in South Africa is failing the people. Right? We are in the same boat. Nobody is looking down on anybody. Nobody thinks less of anybody. And in fact, if my South African family understood how much love Black Americans have for Africans, right? This is why we have African celebrations in the States. This is why African heritage is so popular. This is why companies like Ancestry.com made millions and billions off of US citizens, off of Black Americans, off of UK black people, you know? This is why they made so much money off of that, because we are searching for the truth. We want to know which tribe we're from. I don't know if I'm Yoruba, I don't know if I'm Zulu, I don't know if I'm North African, I look like an Ethiopian. Some people, you know, this is how people think, right? And so, contrary to what we've been taught, or the belief that people have about, you know, this person looking down on that person, that's not true. Nobody's looking down on anything. If anything, we're looking for ways to connect, right? This is why the Back to Africa movement was so big in the US, right? This is why countries like Ghana and Nigeria and all these, you know, Lagos, people talk about it. But this is why countries like Ghana and things like that has such a huge Black American population, right, migrating there, because we are looking for it. We we can't look down on something that we're trying to cultivate. We can't look down on a relationship that we're trying to build. It's like dating a brand new woman, but you think she's trash and you think she's really below you. She's beneath your level. Why would you be pursuing that woman if you thought she was below you? Why would Black Americans be pursuing Africa in the way that we are if we really felt, looked at you as less than us? No. Remove that thought. I'm talking directly to my South African family. Remove that thought from your mind. That does not exist in real life for Black Americans. Nobody feels like anybody is any better than anybody. What we want is to be accepted. What you want is to be respected. What we want is to be accepted. What you want is to be respected. If you accept us, then you treat us with fairness. You don't overcharge us. You don't put us in harm's way. You don't try to get over on us. You don't try to, right? You don't objectify us, right? You don't push us away. You don't shun us. You don't chase us away like stepchildren, right? And if we respect you, right? We're looking for acceptance. You're looking for respect. If we respect, then we come into the country humbly. We come into the country knowing that, okay, there's some connotations about Black America that I may have to defuse, right? We come in respectful. We don't come in and try and take over or look down or run over people, or like, that's not the mentality that's gonna build. Respect and acceptance, both ways, can build something beautiful, you know? And so I'm going to say that my first 90 days in South Africa, we can talk about all the good things. And of course, I've talked about it before, about how beautiful and the landscape and all these things, right? But my first 90 days in South Africa has been eye-opening, right? Has been an awakening, right, to a new reality. It has been informative about the conditions that my people are in. It has given me a new respect for the way that these people have persevered, right? And I'll give an example. Um, my TikTok is, it travels where I go. So if I'm in the States, my feed is all like US stuff and, American, all over the States. But when I'm here, my feed turns to South African. So I'm seeing stuff I can't understand. I'm seeing stuff, I got a South African feed on my phone. And let me just say it plainly. My American feed is so negative. My American feed is so negative. And when I say negative, what I mean is every video I scroll, let me tell you how to get over. And whoever's listening to, and like, yo, it's so that from relationship stuff to complaining about friends to right. And then I go over to I got two phones. So I use one phone with my US, got a VPN on it, US feed. My other phone has South African, phone number. And I go through that feed and it's just laughing, it's positivity, it's dancing, it's cultural jokes, it's like our level of what we think is funny are on two different pages, right? And it makes me feel some type of way because, like I said at the beginning of this, we have so much privilege on our end, right? We have so much to be grateful for on our end of the spectrum, right? But somehow, my South African brothers and sisters who are really going through, like, I'm here. I can see what's really happening. Like, you can watch TV, you can do whatever and you can give your opinion from that side of the world. But I'm here and I see it with my own two eyes. I see the poverty. I see the corruption. I see it. I see it. I see the mass killings. I see the murderers. I see the rapists. I see what's really happening, right? Don't be blind to the fact of what's really happening in these places, right? Things can be bad depending on where you are, right? I'm blessed to be able to live in a certain place and live a certain lifestyle. Well, I don't have to do that, but everybody's not that fortunate. But even in those circumstances, right? Those people are happy. Everybody's dancing. Everybody. Now, I'm not saying everybody's always that there's no drama. Don't get in the comments saying all of the. You understand my overall perspective and what I'm trying to say, which is even in the midst of chaos, negativity, oppression, we are still finding a way to keep love flowing, to keep laughing, to keep smiling, to keep encouraging each other. And I'm just not seeing that. And maybe it's my feed, maybe everybody's algorithm is different. Maybe, I don't know. But I know what I'm seeing is that it's hard for me to even watch my American feed, whether it's Instagram, whether it's just depressing, um, because we are all complaining. We are all complaining, and it's exhausting, you know, especially when you see people who have 10 times less than you have, 10 times less income, 10 times less opportunity, 10 times less, there are kids who are taking care of kids. And I know it's the same with the States, right? But that negativity just isn't broadcast all day long. All are relevant points. Don't get me wrong. Everything that we are talking about is relevant. It does happen. It is true. I'm just saying it doesn't have to be our focus all day long. I have a choice on whether I want that to be my reality every day. You know, when I can just be thankful for what God is doing. I can be thankful for the blessings that I do have. I can be thankful for, where I am right now. And so, uh, overall, family, and I know I'm kind of rambling, but, you know, uh, this has been eye-opening for me. Um, Both good and bad. Nothing is perfect. Nothing goes according to plan. Nothing is gonna, just work out nitty gritty the way that we expected. But overall, I know that I made the best decision for my life that I could have. You know, um, I don't regret it for one moment. Um, and I would encourage my brothers and sisters who are on the fence, who do need something different, who tired of the negativity, who want to just embrace life and live, to give it a try. And it may not be South Africa, it may not be Africa as a whole, but if we never step outside of um, the matrix that we live in, right? I don't think we'll ever be able to see ourselves in a different way. This experience has allowed me to see myself in a certain way, you know? it's helped my confidence. It's helped my belief in myself. It's helped my confidence in the way that I'm able to move through this life. We all only have one life, y'all. We all only got one life. What do you choose to do with it? That's the question. What do we choose to do? All right, y'all. So I ain't gonna keep talking us through the wall, but it's beautiful here. So today, I think we're gonna try and get to the mall. We're not gonna try to do a lot here because, you know, we really need to recover. We really need to relax, try and get ourselves together, you know. So I think we're gonna do a couple small activities. Think we'll go to the mall. We were thinking about going to the safari tomorrow, but we'll see how that works out. I'm waiting to hear from my driver, but we're gonna take you along with what we got going. I love y'all. If you got questions, if you got comments, definitely hit me down below. I appreciate the people who've been subscribing, who've been working with us while we grow this channel. And we're gonna find our niche. We're gonna find our groove on how we get this thing done. Baby is still in there sleeping. I'm up early. I can never sleep late when I'm on vacation. I'm always up, ready to go. But all right, man. I love y'all. Some bed.